idea of I've got questions. And this is specifically geared to if you're one of those people we were talking about who you're new to this and you don't quite know what to think of church yet and you're not really sure what you think of God yet or any of it. We want to be able to answer some of those questions that you might have right up front. And so tonight, we're kind of looking at that idea of what do you want from me? Because that's one of the first things that comes to everybody's mind is what is expected. So that's going to be our question for this evening. But first, we want to take the opportunity to kind of tell you who we are and why we're doing this. Maybe you figured out on the way in this is First Christian Church. But some people, if you are kind of from a church background, then you start wondering, well, what denomination do you believe this? Do you believe that? And we're one of those ones that kind of came out of the Restoration movement that said, let's just get back to doing church like the Bible says, let's do church. And so with that, we're able to do this type of setting where it's a little bit more relaxed. It's come as you are. In Acts 2, it describes them getting together in the temples, but also getting together in homes, breaking bread, and just doing life together to make each other better. And that's what we aim for. So we wanted to start this service called The Gathering to kind of reach out in a different way to a different demographic that maybe they're not quite as comfortable with that Sunday morning church experience that they've been through. So there's something to that. And when we started talking about what we wanted to kind of call this Saturday night service, the word gathering came to mind pretty quickly. I was reading a book by a guy named Andy Stanley, and he was talking about how the origins of the word church are kind of a little bit lost in translation for us because we've interpreted it over time to be this building, but it's not just the place you go once or twice a week. What it really meant was it meant gathering. It was a group of people coming together with a shared purpose. And so that's what church meant, was the people gathering. It was more about all of you than about where you were going. It was about the thing that you had in common, which was Jesus. And so that's why we wanted to call it that. And we have, kind of a lot of these thoughts that surround it that we'll keep unpacking over time and keep sharing a little bit more and more about why our tagline is love for this city. And why that's kind of the motivating factor of what's pushing us to do what we do. And this weird little logo that you keep seeing that's the little circles reaching out. I've heard that it's a molecule and things like that. But it will make sense in time. It's more like a digital version of a tree. I'll give you that hint for now because it's more about us meeting in the center but then branching out in our own ways too. And so that's why we want to do this, is just to reach out for a few reasons, because number one, there is power when you gather together. There are things that you cannot get on your own. Many people think, okay, well, I can believe in God, I can worship God, but all his people are weird. And you might be right, but you still need them. And so one of the places in the Bible that I would point you to here to kind of back this up is the writer of Hebrews is telling us in chapter 10, and this verse is going to be up on the screen to make it a little bit easier. But he's telling us about that power and gathering. It says, let us hold unswervingly, so stay focused, right there to the hope that we profess. For he who promised us sometimes, the tongue gets going faster than the brain. I'm there. For he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together or gathering together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. And all the more as you see the day approaching. See, what the writer there is telling us is keep getting together, keep gathering, keep pushing each other to be better and better, because it's only in that time of encouragement that you're going to become everybody or you're going to become as much as you're supposed to be. The other reason we want to reach out, and I can only speak for me personally on this one, but that's kind of where my heart is. There's always that driving passion for those who have maybe never been to church and they're not sure what to think of it, they're not sure what they think of Jesus. And I love to talk to those people and try to walk them through it, but I also even inside of that, there's an even more special place in my heart for the people who have been to church and it didn't go well, and that's why they're not there now. Those are the people that I love to come alongside and show that, yeah, his people messed it up, but God didn't change. That God's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and whatever happened there doesn't impact who he actually is. Those are the people that I really want to reach out to and help bring back in from these wrong ideas that we have about God. You know, there was kind of this American idea for a long time that as long as we work hard, do good, and be good, then maybe God will say, we good. But it's not that simple. It's not about all the work you put in. It's not about trying to follow the rules perfectly. And that's what we're going to kind of take a look at this evening. And I kind of want to challenge the idea that God or the church, the question isn't really what do we want from you, it's what we want for you. Because all we want to do is point to Jesus and show you what it is that he wants for your life. So tonight we're going to be looking at a story. I almost hesitate to call them stories because when you get that word in your mind, you start to think some kind of made-up tale, but that's not it. This book is more like a history book. And so we're going to be looking at this story that happened, and it was actually Jesus' best friend that wrote it down this way for us. We're going to be in John chapter 4. And if you want to turn there with us, that would be great. If you didn't bring a Bible, that's okay. It'll be up on the screen. If you didn't bring one because you don't have one, tell us we have one we'd love to give you just because we want to put it in as many hands as possible. And so John's in the New Testament. Old Testament's everything before Jesus. New Testament's once he shows up. And fourth guy who's writing to us, his name is John, and he is Jesus' best friend. And he's telling us this tale later of what he saw happen. And it opens saying, Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. Although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. And all this is doing is kind of setting the stage for what's going to happen. It tells you why he's moving from one place to another. And a lot of this to us, okay, they're all just places somewhere over there, way back in time. It doesn't mean much. But it's what happens next that if we kind of set ourselves back in history, take a look at the map, we start to see some things. Verse 4 says, now he had to go through Samaria. And if you look at a map today, maybe that makes sense. It is more of the straight line. But to set the stage, you have to understand that Jewish people like Jesus didn't associate with the people of Samaria. Everybody else who took that path from where he was to where he was going literally walked around this whole region to make sure they could not possibly run into a Samaritan. So when it says Jesus had to go through there, there's a little bit different meaning there. He had to for a reason, but it wasn't he had to because it was on his way. He was going out of his way to go into a place nobody else wanted to go. It says, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. I can tell you this, when little sentences like that, it was about noon. When those things that seem like, why is that included? We should probably ask, why is it included? Because it's a hint as to what's going on in the story. And what we find next is why he let us know that it's already at noon, it's already in the hottest part of the day. It says, when a Samaritan woman came to draw water. I'm going to stop you there before we even finish the sentence, because here's what doesn't add up to the people John's writing this to and who are familiar with the area and the situation is, why is this woman coming at noon to draw water? You see, during that time, all of the women would go out as a group first thing in the morning. while it's still cool. They would collect their water together because safety in numbers. That was the safe way to do it. That was the time they all got to, talk to each other, to gossip a little bit, to share the news of what's going on in the town. That was their time together. So why is this woman coming out in the heat of the day by herself? What we're going to find is she has a little bit of a history that's made her not too popular with the rest of the people. These are her own people, her own town, and she's going out in the heat of the day to do the hardest work just to avoid them, to avoid what they would say about her. But Jesus doesn't avoid her. Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. So she knows right up front, something's not right. You're a Jewish man during this time. Like I said, they don't associate with Samaritans, and culturally, women kind of took the back seat at that time. She's saying, that's 2 strikes against me. Why are you even talking to me? And Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." She clearly doesn't understand that he's not talking about the water in the well. Because she said, "Sir," or what could be translated as Lord. The woman said, "You have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep." So she's kind of laughing a little bit, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about. You don't even have a bucket. The water's way down there. You don't have a bucket. How are you supposed to give me anything?" And she just keeps going. She says, "Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." Notice that so far, Jesus hasn't asked for anything but that cup of water. It wasn't about what she could offer to him. He just kept offering her something. She didn't understand what it was he was saying, and that he was offering her something much better than the water she was there to get. But he hadn't asked for a thing from her yet. And the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." She's still focused on the get me out of my situation so I don't have to keep coming down here and hearing the other women make fun of me. I'm tired of what they have to say about me. I'm tired of doing the work. Help me out of that. And he told her, this might sound weird, but he's kind of setting her up so that he can prove who he is and what he knows. He's told her, "Go call your husband and come back." And I know, 21st century, just about every woman in here would have kind of shot him that look and said, "I can speak for myself, leave him out of it." But that's not how it was back then. And that's not what he was getting at either. She replied, "I have no husband." And that's when Jesus told her what he knew. He said, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true." Now, Jesus here, he's not really scolding her. He's just letting her in on, yeah, I know everything about you. I'm still talking to you. He knows that whole background. He knows all the reasons that she doesn't want to be there at 9 in the morning with the other women. She knows all the things they've said about her. He's still telling her, I'm still talking to you. I knew all that before. So the woman said, "I can see that you're a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on the mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." So she's starting to figure out, all right, he's got a little something more going on than I realized. So she kind of strikes up this debate about where to worship. She's picking his brain because this was one of the things that they disagreed on. It was one of the reasons the Jews and Samaritans didn't want to get along. Woman, Jesus replied, "Believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet the time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth." And all that little debate between them really goes to show Jesus is saying it doesn't matter where you are when you're worshiping. It's more about who you're worshiping and your attitude while you're doing it. And the woman said, "I know that the Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he'll explain everything to us." So she's asking these questions, trying to figure out, are you the one that I'm supposed to be waiting on to explain it all? And then Jesus declared, "I am the one speaking to you. I am he." That little "I am he" is actually kind of huge in the scriptures and in what he was saying, because when we go way back in the Old Testament, that was kind of the name God used when he was talking to Moses. And he was very clearly telling this woman, "I'm God. I'm that Messiah you're waiting for. I know everything about you. I'm offering you something." See, he simply just wanted her. He wanted to talk to her. He started the conversation over that water, but it wasn't about what he wanted from her. It's what he wanted to give to her. It wasn't what he wanted from her. It's what he wanted for her. He offered her a better life. And it's the same way with all of us. When he comes to us, he knows everything about us. He knows the entire history. He knows the current situation, but he still just wants us. He just wants us to kind of turn over our lives and admit that we can't hold it all together. And that he knows better than us, that what he offers us is so much better. He simply wants you. And he wants to offer you more. And that's all we want for you. That's all this is intended to do, is to point back to Jesus, to point back to the fact that he wants the time to have this encounter with each of you, to sit down with you and talk, to get to know him. Sure, there's probably going to be that time where you have to say, "But Jesus, all this stuff in my past," and he's just going to say, "Yeah, I already know, but I'm still here." He just wants you to turn that over to him. Now, this evening, we get to do something pretty special with that. Because one of the ways that, as Christians, we make that decision, that we acknowledge that Jesus is who he said he is, that we give him exactly what he's looking for when we turn ourselves over to him. And it may sound weird, because for some people, you're saying, "Well, that ain't much," and for some of you, you're saying, "Well, my life is everything. How do I commit that to him?" But it's not a magical process that happens all at once. It's something that he keeps talking to you about. It's not like he's going to come with a list of demands and say, "You got to fix this, 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 and this, and then we'll talk about being on the right page together." He just says, "Come to me, come as you are. We'll worry about the rest." One of the ways we get to celebrate that, our kids are going to start making their way back down because they want to be a part of this too. We want them to see this and understand it. But as Christians, we do this thing called baptism. And this is where somebody decides, "I'm tired of trying to run it on my own. I want to come to God. I want that living water he's offering. I want that salvation from all the things I've let myself slip into." So I want to point to just a couple more scriptures as the kids are coming down that point to that very fact. And then this evening, I'm so excited that right in the launch of this gathering service, we get to have a baptism already to celebrate together. read these two scriptures to us. First one comes from one of Jesus' other close friends, a guy by the name of Peter. He knew plenty about doing things wrong. He rushed in, had a bit of a temper sometimes. He even disowned Jesus once. Jesus forgave him. He went on to tell us this. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promises. Some understand slowness. Instead, he's patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance, which is just turning around, saying, I'm tired of running from you, I'm going to run towards you. The other one's found in the book of Romans. A guy by the name of Paul set up for us what it really takes. He said, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved. And so this evening, that's what we're going to do. At least one of us is. Tristan, if you want to go ahead and start heading up this way, buddy, or at least preparing yourself, emptying your pockets and all that. Tristan Brown, he's one of those people, he's been with us for a while at this point, and has made that decision that, you know what, I'm tired of running the wrong way, I want to run the right way. He's made that decision to get baptized. Baptism, kind of like our communion, it's one of those things that it's sacred, but it's also that symbol that points to a higher truth. And so it points to something else. And so we've got this, what I'm calling a portable baptistry, set up over here. All right? Yeah, it looks like a swimming pool, but it's got a higher purpose. All right? We're going to go over here. And once I'm in there, I'm going to ask Tristan some questions, but for hopefully obvious reasons, I won't have my mic at that point. Okay? But it's really just about, is he confessing that faith? Does he really want to follow Jesus? And then we submerge him under the water, and it kind of mirrors what Jesus went through for us by his death on the cross. It's kind of letting go of that old life, symbolizing that death to the old ways, and then we lift him up pretty quick. We don't hold him under too long. And it symbolizes that rebirth, and that new way of life, that I'm going to follow Jesus. And what seems like such a simple act for us, in many parts of the world and in many parts of history, that hasn't been the case. Immediately at that point, it's letting go of a lot of things, family and friends that'll disown you and all of that. We live in a very blessed place and time that we can freely do this as an example for everybody out there. But at the same time, just have that, personal faith and knowing that we're following Jesus. And so kind of after we do that, there's going to be a song playing. After I've brought him out of the water, I'm going to pray for us to close. I'll try to be as loud as I can. But as that time happens as well, as I'm praying, we've got a few other people who are going to move to the other three corners of the room. And if you need to talk about kind of how your relationship is with Jesus, or you just have something going on that you need somebody to pray with you, that's what we're here for. I'll be up here. I'll be wet, so if you want somebody dry, go to one of the other three corners. But we want to pray with you. We want to talk to you. I'll just get to know you. There's food back there for afterwards and all of that, so stick around and just talk to us. I know I seem like I'm rambling at this point. I'm just so excited about this. And I'm so excited that I just want to make sure everybody understands clearly what we've been trying to communicate tonight about how when you look at the question of what does God want from you, the simple answer is you. He just wants you to say, okay, I agree to walk with you and follow you. That's what we're going to be doing.